Welcome viewers. On behalf of Iravati Research and Communication Center, this is your host, Pratim Ranjan Bose. I have with me Brigadier Niladri Shankar Mukherjee, retired. Together we will discuss Manipur issues. There had been a violence and the way forward. The ethnic violence in Manipur began in early May. Since then, Center introduced Article 355, so thereby taking over quite a degree of responsibility of law and order. Army entered the scene and brought definite improvement in law and order. The death toll has slowed down drastically after the first month, but the two sides became geographically separated and the situation remained tense. There had been reports also, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, there were reports of 2 deaths, etc. With that, let me turn to Brigadier Mukherjee. Sir, how grave is the situation in Manipur? Given the history of the state and the region, can it take an uglier turn? And what measures India should take to bring the situation under control? Over to you, sir.
Very good evening to you, Mr. Bose, and very good evening to all the viewers. Personally, I feel the situation is grave, but governments, both at the center and the state, as well as the central agencies, which includes both the army and the CAPF, have got their act together. That's what I feel. And therefore, it is unlikely the situation will take an uglier turn. Whilst every concerned activist, opposition parties, NGOs and think tanks have recommended that the state must be brought under governor's rule, and the AFSPA promulgated maybe in select district for a limited period to start with. But we'll come to that when you ask me the next question. Presently, I differ with the view that we should have governor's rule for the time being.
Okay. So, I mean, governor's rule means Article 356 and etc. So basically, we know the conflict, the history of this conflict. It is basically an issue of right to own lands. One community which had been the ruler of the land, and they had been staying over there for too long. So they are squeezed, who are 50% of the population, they are squeezed into anywhere between 10 to 20% of land in different by different measures. And then we also know that I just saw a document that during that army coup in Myanmar in the 60s, Cookies have they became refugees to India. And we know since then that there had been unrest on the border areas of Myanmar for too long. And then finally in 2021 coup, and once again, after some brief 10 years of so-called democratic rule, once again the army is in power, and the situation had been very volatile in Myanmar. So the question is, given this background, that what is the way forward to solve this conflict?
Firstly, let me just review the entire situation as it has emerged in the state of Manipur. The history of ethnic violence in the state of Manipur is a 100-year-old history of the violence between the ethnic minorities as well as the Meiteis and the others. Now, the Meiteis have been always saying that the Cookies are alien and that they have come across from Burma and settled down and encroached upon all the land that belonged to the Meiteis. Whilst on the other hand, the Cookies claim, and rightly so, that at one point of time, the entire area was British India. And therefore, they have come across much earlier than the independence had taken place. What they have done is taken a strategic, the community as such, the Kuki community as such, had taken a strategic view to become Christians. It has helped them no end to settle down in this area and claim minority status. Now, you will notice that this is not the first time that the ethnic violence has taken place. The Kukis have fought the Nagas have fought the Meiteis, and this has been happening over a period of time. Ever since independence, when the entire area was up in flames because of insurgency and militancy of a very high order, the Armed Forces Special Powers Act did a lot to bring things to normalcy. At that point of time, political activity also started. And over a period of time, the entire militancy and the ethnic strife, I wouldn't say that it was absolutely washed away or submerged or taken away for that matter, but it did not simmer the way it was in the past. The political aspirations of the people, all the communities, and basically the development that was taking place did a lot to make sure that the tribes could stay together. Now, in this context, it is basically a sharing of resources. 57% of the population stays in 7.3% of the geographical land. Obviously, they feel, like you rightly brought out, they feel absolutely stifled. The remaining area, the hillside, completely are dominated by the Kuki tribes who are staying there, the Nagas. Now, the entire area, there is no doubts in anybody's mind that the Kukis and the Nagas have basically realized that if they, by any chance, allow the Meiteis to expand, the Meiteis being influential, large group in population, then they will be absolutely slowly squeezed out of their traditional homelands. And therefore, basically, it's a sharing of resources. Coupled with this, the problem here in Manipur is the cultivation of poppy, which gives them high returns.
And it has gone up. It has gone up.
And it has gone up tremendously. The Caesars in the last, I was going through the portal of the Caesars in that area. It has become huge. So that is one area that you must look at. And you must appreciate that not only the Kukis, the Nagas, the Meiteis, everybody is involved in this trade. Also, Moreh, the area and the trail from Moreh allows huge amounts of Chinese goods to be smuggled in through this route. And this entire area is flush with Chinese goods of all kinds in the northeast, you will notice. So basically, the Kukis realize that their source of living,
the market at the border is practically run by the Chinese.
Absolutely. And therefore, they feel, you see, the Kukis know that they cannot at this moment, except for a small percentage, they have not been able to get employment or generate employment of the kind that any other state would because of manufacturing or other developmental activities. So poppy is actually, and smuggling, various kinds of smuggling, is actually a parallel economy which is giving them solace, somehow making them live there without any trouble. And if that is somehow taken away, basically the trouble started when the present government started with the idea of taking away the encroachers from government forests, identifying illegal immigrants. That was a spark. That was the spark. And all of a sudden,
for last 1 year, there had been conflicts going on. I mean, it was peaking.
Already, it was just simmering. And the judicial pronouncement of suddenly giving them the SC status was the final trigger. And, immediately, spontaneously, the Kukis took to the streets. Although they claimed initially that this was a peaceful kind of an uprising, the Meiteis reacted. And so eventually what has happened has happened.
Therefore, if I take you back to March 2023, there was a violence. There was a violence in Manipur.
Yes.
And in one of those in a peaceful march, and that was just ahead of the court order. So,
absolutely,
there was kind of a readiness from either side, I believe, that we have to settle our things this time, kind of.
Judicial pronouncement notwithstanding, Mr. Bose, I would believe that we are a democracy. And therefore, any community, in a peaceful manner, if they strive for being getting into the ST status, they have every right to peacefully agitate. And they have every right to put forward their entire plea before the entire process. And
Right.
the process must take its course. Eventually, if they are not given, they are not given. But nobody can stop them from, I wouldn't say agitating, but stop them from a peaceful protest of trying to come into the ST status. Now,
Right.
that is one thing that the Kukis and the Nagas must appreciate, that just because there is a judicial pronouncement does not mean that immediately the Maitis will become ST and SC status will be granted to them. No, it will
Right.
not be so.
Right.
There is a whole range of process that has to go on. Also, Mr. Bose, I would like to bring to your notice that recently a very high functionary of the church in Delhi made a statement, and they must be getting all the inputs from various agencies, that this is not a religious divide. This is a ethnic strife of sharing of resources. And therefore, to bring in the religious angle into this is not actually correct. Now, I personally feel at this juncture, much has happened because of the violence. One of the festering problems that nobody seems to, identify and put a finger on is that both sides, the women folk, you will be surprised, Mr. Bose, the women folk on both sides, they are, in a grouping where they provoke and, should I say, they are menfolk. They are menfolk. They provoke them, they instigate them to commit violence on the other side's women. Now, that is something which is of a serious nature. You can well imagine
understand the long flirting with violence had its own pitfalls. They have been flirting with violence for too long.
And not only that, it is savagery of another kind. It is the kind of violence which tribes only can indulge in this particular area of Manipur, which is savage, which is very brutal.
I would like to take you to one question here before I go to move over. To me, it appeared when this rape things came up, so far as you have been posted there on behalf of the forces, and you are the executive director and secretary of CENERS-K, so you have where a lot of your colleagues are in. So you have a lot of ground knowledge of that area, of the turbulent days. So far as my knowledge goes, I haven't come across many incidences of torture on women in these ethnic clashes in Northeast. What happened? Is it something new this time, or it has been particular to Manipur?
Mr. Bose, I will be very candid with you. I feel that, and I have known that there have been a lot of violence against women in the state of Manipur over the years. There have been situations where the military forces and paramilitary forces have also indulged in this kind of incidents at times. Of course, justice has been swift, because these are not things which the paramilitary forces and the armed forces can ever tolerate. But situations have spiraled out of control in a lot of situations. And over the years, many of these reports get quietly forced, out of the public eye. But your perception that the Northeast treats their women very gently is not something I entertain.
Okay.
I am personally of the opinion that the women folk of both sides, the Kukis and the Maites, are instigating their men folk, provoking their men folk. When they come in front of the cameras, in front of the media, they're all sweet and very, they will put on a gentle profile, but that is not so. It is for them a do or die situation in sharing of resources, and they are as vicious as their menfolk.
Okay. Pretty strong observations from the ground.
Yes, I had to make that, because over a period of time, in the last 80 days or so much of literature has come out, so much of talk has been there, so much of discussions and panel discussions.
This has been a question.
Yes.
How do you look at this literature that had been, coming up for last 80 days or so? And it's a propaganda war, surely. And how do
everybody, I noticed that this is absolutely a very selective kind of videos and literature which is being now selectively put out on the social media, the amount of discussion that is taking place on television channels, the selective writing by activists in newspapers
In
and
fact, I
print
wouldn't
media.
blame the television channels. I mean, many of them didn't have any knowledge of Northeast till the other day. You and I know it.
Absolutely with you. I'm absolutely with you.
What happens is not many people are aware that the journalists there, it's an extremely clannish society, and even the journalists are part of that, and they have to protect their clan whenever.
And they have an agenda.
Yeah.
And they have an agenda.
It's clearly for the clan kind of a situation. So depending on
may I venture out to be, I'm sorry for interrupting, but may I also venture out that my tribe, the soldiers' tribe, people who come onto the national panel on television as experts from the fraternity also have an agenda. I have not seen a very fair and neutral kind of comment on what is happening on the ground. Everybody knows the background, the history, but nobody is coming out with any solutions. And solutions are very difficult to find. In a situation such as this, even the government and the present central and state government with 55, 355, whatever, it will take a long time for healing to be done. And exactly. Of course, we will come to what
Northeast
recommendations
has become peaceful over 70 years. So yes. So bringing them, they are the warring tribes. All of these are warring tribes, and
absolutely
bringing them, they have to learn to stay with each other. I mean, I think that's a pretty long
process. Absolutely.
We know that these ethnic clashes are not new to Northeast. It erupts.
No, it got 100-year-old history, and even before.
I'm not talking about Manipur, but anywhere and everywhere the ethnic clashes are so common and it erupts so quickly. This is a typical nature of the land.
And can anybody deny that there is to just say that and name small figures of immigration? Can anybody deny that huge amount of immigration of illegal immigrants is taking place?
Yeah, so quickly
that they are coming across in hundreds and thousands.
I just saw the official figures. As per official figures, some 2,000 people entered Manipur and some 32,000 in Mizoram. I think these figures are just like, what
a drop in the ocean.
Drop in the
absolutely.
Ocean. That is nice.
Absolutely.
And it cannot be. If there is 30,000, if I accept that figure in Mizoram, it has to be a minimum of 10,000 in Manipur. It cannot be below
absolutely. That. So one can imagine the problem of how the borders are so badly managed, how the border policing is being done so ineffectively.
Quickly, if we just ask you, some movement has begun in Manipur to do the biometric, kind of iCards and isolating the others. But it is a state government. I think this is being done through the state government. The border, we cannot go for fencing on the border, I believe. Do you believe it is possible? It is an open border. We have an agreement.
I have a set of recommendations in systematic, sequence,
please,
which I think you would like to consider, and that may be a way forward. I'm not saying that this is because people have come out over a period of time with all these suggestions, but in sequentially, if these could be done, I think some sort of a normalcy could be in a short time frame restored before the eventual problems are sorted out. Firstly, I recommend that there should not be the opposition, and the activists should not at this moment keep clamoring for governor's rule and sacking the chief minister. I'll give my reasons why. The center and the state both have the same government, so changing a governor will hardly matter. In any case, the MOS is sitting there and directing everything, and the MHA is absolutely deeply involved. And today's communication systems are such, you don't have to need a governor on the ground to be implementing what the center is saying. So therefore, even if a change of a governor takes place, eventually the center has taken control. Secondly, if Biren Singh at the moment is made to resign or sacked, remember that he has tremendous Maite following. whether he's biased or
will,
not
it will invite serious disaster.
It will not only invite serious disaster, there will be a volatile reaction from the mighties. So at this moment, asking for his resignation is another, I would say, a blunder that would take place. And the opposition knows it. They have been in power also. But like I said, they practice hate politics. At this juncture, the first thing is don't change the structure at the moment on the ground. Let the chief minister function. Let the governor be there for the time being. Secondly, the restoring normalcy means there should be a ceasefire. It should be a government brokered with the partnership of both the leaders from both the communities, as well as the Nagas and the Zo tribes. All in all, a large panel should conduct initial brokering of a ceasefire between the communities. The guns must fall silent. The third recommendation that I have to make is, having done these two things of the present structure, making it clear to everybody that, look, the governor will not be, there will be no governor's rule, and we are not in any mood to sack the CM. Make it absolutely clear so that this thing is absolutely, I think in the parliament, when the no confidence motion debate starts, all this will be made clear by the government. The next point is the operations to expedite the recovery of arms and ammunition must now be more vigorous. A time limit must be, yes, a time limit must be laid down that those who will surrender their arms and ammunition will be granted amnesty. Beyond that time limit, prosecution will be absolute must. And this must be vigorously followed. Next is the ROPs, that is the road opening parties, and the checkposts which the civilians and the voluntary community people are now at this moment placing it on ground, and and disturbing the peace by becoming
bunkers all across.
All across. So these patrols, these checkposts, these civilian, all this must be outlawed. The deployment of the paramilitary forces and the army should be such, like we did it in the high days of insurgency. A selective grid must be established on ground. The road opening parties must be placed, and the checkposts must be organized so that there is free movement of goods and services, and Manipur does not fall short like the blockades used to establish an absolute problem for the entire state. That should not happen. The next is a very high level of sanitation and hygiene and good health care must prevail in the camps that have been set up at the moment for these refugees who have been displaced. Over 60,000 people are there. The situation is tragic at the moment.
In fact, this has been a serious issue that we are hearing less about the refugees.
Absolutely. And I am absolutely, Mr. Bose, quite horrified as to why government is not opening its purse strings and using the immense amount of manpower and resources it has to make the living conditions of the refugees till they can go back to their, hearth and hand. Why can't they make them comfortable?
60,000 I believe is no small number for a small numbers.
I think at this moment they need to increase the hygiene and sanitation aspects, the toiletry aspects, the administration, the logistics, the food. Not only that, there must be teachers who must go and make sure that these children who are there in the refugee camps do not lose out on education. Coaching starts, selective classes are taking place, and even counselors must be there for traumatized people. There is a necessity of these people being counseled. So there must be a definite increase in the kind of situation that is prevailing at the refugee camps. And that is my next point, which is a major point. The next is simultaneously what they should do is effective border policing. The border policing at this juncture should be taken over by the army. The Assam Rifles and the BSF and other paramilitary forces, I don't think so at this juncture. For a limited time period, they can depend upon, because there is biases and there is compromisation of deployment of the and conduct on the ground.
When you are saying border policing, are you talking about border policing across the
between Myanmar and the state of Manipur? There must be effective border policing at this juncture, and all cross-border movement of this.
So it is Myanmar Manipur border you are talking about, not including Mizoram.
Mizoram also, because there is a trail of people coming in from Mizoram and entering Manipur. So this
that is why
border, yes, that effective border
and the clan and the closeness of the clan.
Absolutely. And the MEA must talk to the military junta in Myanmar and ask them to, at this moment, support us in making sure that the border movement for a limited period should be absolutely stopped. This headload of people moving across, as also the effective policing on the other side, must be done by the Myanmar military junta, and they must help.
We know that there is a little bit
but
of
we must make an effort. We must make an effort.
A lot of these PDFs are in Sagain.
I know, but we have to make an effort and to tell them that this is something which we are doing. We will not allow at this moment for a limited period cross-border movement of this.
Yeah, I think we have to take, yeah, you are very right. We have to take Myanmar with us in this.
The next is, I personally feel, Mr. Bose, our local intelligence system always seems to be a lackadaisical kind of an organization. I do not know why these local intelligence unit and the cells of the IB and other intelligence agencies which function on the ground, why do they always falter? Why can't they notice things before, finally the entire thing erupts in flames? Only then they, sort of start reporting and saying this has happened, that has happened. It is same in Kashmir, it is same in Punjab, it is same in the Northeast. Why can't these agencies get their act together and inform the agencies and the government at the right time that, look, something is brewing, this is what is happening? They never seem to do that. There is always an intelligence failure. I think they need to reactivate this entire intelligence grid which is there in the Northeast. At this moment, I think RAW needs to also get its act together. There is absolutely ample evidence of, maybe the Chinese are not outrightly showing this, but they have already started supplying arms and ammunition. They have already started helping out and observing the scene very closely. And also their entire poppy trade, which their state actors also at this moment, ensure, because they pick up a lot of money from this for funneling their kind of external intelligence agencies. And they would love to sort of now venture in and create problems here. So RAW must get its act together and make sure that this kind of a situation here is also stopped. So this is what I'm thinking, that immediately they should start. Because at the moment, if they must also set up a administrative machinery to process all cases of compensation for damage to property and loss of life. This has to be done. And then encourage negotiations and peace talks by ethnic community leaders, fast-track investigations, and presently put on the back burner. Three things must be at this moment, Mr. Bose, put on the back burner. At this moment, this is not the time to start clearing encroached government land. This is not the time at this moment to start identifying people by rounding them up and putting them in detention centers and creating another chaos. This is not the time to publicly every day show on TV that people have been putting through biometric, all this kind of this, they can be done after restoring of normalcy. Quietly, all these can be expedited. But this, at this juncture, again, biases will be called, cookies will say it has been done with a agenda, and all this will happen.
Surely.
So at the moment, this should be put on the back burner. And finally, the internal security agencies have to be made accountable. This is a set of recommendations that I want to make, Mr. Bose, for restoring quick normalcy.
Do you believe that there has been a serious intelligence failure?
I believe there has been a very, very serious intelligence failure. I am putting my neck on the block to say that the intelligence agencies just did not have an idea that when they went about suddenly starting clearing the government land, forest land, and started, rounding up some of these immigrants and getting them into detention centers, that an earthquake was coming. And surely, somewhere there has been an instigation. I would not go so far as trapping myself into, again, some kind of a judicial review. But why this judicial pronouncement at that point of time also came is something the government must also probe. Knowing fully well that a high court judge must understand very clearly what is the process of giving SC status to any community.
Anyway, Supreme Court Chief Justice has already, he has been very critical of that judgment.
Yes, they have wrapped them on the knuckles. But why was it done? Something of this nature is I mean, for a High Court judge to make a pronouncement like this, that 4 weeks is given for you to, make your I mean, this kind of a situation has never happened.
That is exactly what made the situation wrong. It is not the judgment,
Absolutely.
but making it kind of do it in 4 weeks kind of a stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean,
as if
it was
made the cookies.
Sir, I'd like to end with a couple of my concerns. Number one, you said that the arms surrender. We have to give them a window to surrender the arms. Now,
yes, sir, absolutely.
This is about the arms that were looted, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
I believe most of it were looted by the Métis.
Yes.
Apparently, it seems so.
Most of it was looted by the Métis in collusion with the people who allowed them to loot.
No, my question is different. That there had been a lot of arms that was allowed as part of that SOO. Some Kuki militants who had earlier entered into peace agreement, they were retaining the arms. Now, when you are going for an arms surrender, are you asking for an overall arms surrender in the whole state, or just the arms, recovering the looted arms first?
Sir, I personally feel the government for once must make it very clear to the entire Northeast and all these insurgent groups or people who are still talking peace talks with the government, that there cannot be a separate law for one part of the country and another law for this part of the country. All arms which are not licensed, at this juncture, the government must, at this moment, take advantage of this volatile situation and say that anyone found without a proper license, he will be prosecuted after a certain time. And that time can be laid down as an amnesty. You surrender, and if you don't do that, the future is going to be very, very
because if the government goes for recovering only the looted arms, then this question will definitely come up that they are moving around with guns. The
absolutely. So the Métis will say, look, the cookies have
loads of mistakes over the years, which in our dealings in that part of the land.
I agree with you, sir, but at this moment, let us not because every party will be then blamed.
So we have
every party will have his
what you are suggesting, and that is quite to my taste as well, is that at this moment ensure a impartial administration when it comes to law and
administration.
When it comes to law and order, and you have been very categorical in your suggestions that at this moment you should not go into further rubbing salt, and because there is no trust between the state government and the cookies. Right.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
So in that situation, if you go for catching the infiltrators or these biometrics, I mean, just in the short run, avoid it. Avoid the conflict zones in the short run. Let
normalcy be restored,
and then you go the other things. But the priority at this moment is to ensure law and order. So sealing the border is very important. And you suggested that instead of the Assam Rifles and BSF, it is time for the army to man it for a limited period. Time. And and take Myanmar government in confidence and kind of
stop cross-border movement at this moment.
Stop cross-border movement and just sanitize the entire area. This is the
dominate and sanitize.
Dominate,
sanitize.
Then bring them on the table and settle issues.
Absolutely, sir. That's the way forward. There is no other way, and to expect that this will all be done within a month or so is also not being mature enough as a statesman.
No.
One must
all I'm expecting that is if we can bring them on the table in say another in next few months.
That is an achievement by itself.
That will be an achievement by itself. And I think you didn't say, but there is always this trait of this spilling over into a larger trouble in the area. Because
absolutely
we anticipate that a lot of regrouping has been done, and now this clan to clan and all these things, Nagas, very thankfully, Nagas are quiet. And you just, this is a moment probably where politics like Rahul Gandhi said that this is because of Hindutva and all these things. So this kind of comment should, for the moment, it cannot be turned into a laboratory of politicians. For the moment, it is.
Absolutely, sir. And at this point, since you brought this up, I'd like to venture forward, since to all the viewers who will see this recording later on, I'd like to make a plea. You would accept one fact, sir, that our politics is a politics of hate. It is not. We are the largest democracy. We claim to be the mother of democracy. We have a constitution of which we are proud of. We can be friends outside the political arena. Today, if two people who are on opposite sides of the divide, whether they have tea together, is a headline the next day. And the hate politics, in terms of the kind of filth we talk about each political netas and parties, is creating so much of trouble. At this juncture, in a situation such as Nagaland and Manipur, it is imperative that people must get together. The parties must together look for solutions. There is no need to earn brownie points or fuel the fire like Rahul Gandhi or others are wanting to do.
It is not a Bihar, UP, West Bengal. Okay, these parts are whatever, with its goods and bads, these parts are manageable. But that part is
absolutely.
That part is different. That part is,
and it's a frontier state. It's a frontier state with the, with a country like China waiting to.
Historically, they are very different.
Absolutely.
And geographically.
Another fact which I would like to mention, sir, at this juncture, I think this is the right time to mention, no further bifurcation of a state. That is another tragic thing which will happen if they try to make, autonomous regions and union territories. That is another thing which is going to create problems. These all can be talked about during the negotiation stage and at a later stage.
Tomorrow there will be more bifurcation.
Another state. There will be the greater Nagaland will come up. Assam will again start getting.
We all know that so-called Nagalim actually is not about only Nagas. There are loads and loads of tribes into it. So
506 tribes.
Right.
There are 506 tribes there. So you will appreciate that this is no time to talk about those things. Restore normalcy first. Get them onto the table. And make sure the schools open up, the markets open up, rehabilitation is taking place, all the damaged property is again reconstructed, and make sure that the refugee camps are well looked after till they can get back. Till such time they get back, they must have their food, clothing, they must be looked after with healthcare, education, all that, and the government does not lack in resources. If they are not doing this, then I think they are also equally to blame.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It has been really nice to listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.